everyone, welcome back to Sensible SENCO and our COVID update. I don't even know where to start today. I feel really emotional at the moment. I've just sat watching the Education Committee and the House of Parliament and then Boris Johnson's follow-up to that. Don't know why I bothered with that, but I had planned out what I was going to talk about today. I was going to talk about pregnant staff and DSLs and your staffing capacity, and then all of a sudden we've had a wonderful update and we're closing on Friday. Or are we? A bit like the other two videos, I'm kind of left with more questions than answers. As much as I want to reassure everybody, and I've been trying my hardest on Twitter to reassure and respond to questions, and on Facebook as well with my parent groups who are asking me things, and I don't think the government has them either, and that's quite scary. If you've managed to live in a bubble for the last hour, they've announced we're closing schools on Friday. Their reason was that the public health benefits are shifting, and instead of saying we're closing on Friday until the 20th of April, which is what many schools across other countries have done, they've kind of put an end date to it, our government has left us in a bit of limbo because they've said until further notice. And I think that's frightened a lot of people. It's certainly frightened me. Having a deadline, even if that deadline ended up being extended, would have at least given us something to work towards. At the moment, it just feels up in the air and really scary. They have said that schools will, however, remain open, even though they're closed, for key workers. But very helpfully, they're not releasing the list of what a key worker is until tomorrow. That would be the 19th of March 2020. They have suggested that it will include children of NHS workers, those of the police and those of delivery drivers. They've also said that they're going to keep schools open for those children who are our most vulnerable in society. But the government's definition of vulnerable isn't necessarily the definition that we have. They have decided it is anybody who has an assigned social worker. So that could mean a child in a stable foster care environment who, probably sees their social worker once every 6 months. They're going to apparently have to go to school. And our children with the HCPs, some of which have got really supportive families and are not vulnerable in the same sense. Now the EHCP one, I kind of understand. It's a legal document and it sets out on there exactly what those children can expect to receive from a school. But this is an unprecedented time. We also know that children with the HCPs, quite a lot of them, have medical needs that make them more vulnerable. So we're almost sending the weakest to the front line of the battle. It also poses the question for our special schools, because our special schools are the ones this week who have been struggling the most. We have high staff to pupil ratios in special schools because of the needs of the students, and yet we've been told to self-isolate for 14 days. Even if we show just a small symptom, or we cough, and apparently the definition of a continuous cough is 3 times in 1 hour over a period of 3 hours or more. Our special schools are left in a bit of a quandary. Are we open? Are we closed? What's going on? Some of our mainstream schools are confused. I know mainstream schools that have got 50, 60 students with an EHCP because they have enhanced resource units. And how do you justify, especially in a mainstream school, to a child with an EHCP why they have got to go to school but the rest of their classmates haven't? There was this whole thing about inclusion and people being the same and having the same opportunities. And we're almost now saying, well, actually, because you've got your EHCP, you're going to be different again because we're going to single you out and put you into school. So for me, it was almost a half-baked plan. I get where the sentiment was coming from for the government, but I almost felt it needed a bit more thinking through. It also means that all SENCOs are still going to be working, because there are very few schools in the country where we don't have at least one child with an EHCP. So those of us who are hoping to catch up on paperwork over the next few weeks, because the rest of the children are off, and generally speaking we don't have as much of a teaching load, so perhaps aren't doing remote teaching, and we were going to support our teachers in making sure that their lessons were accessible and all the rest of it, are now going to have to possibly work out how we're getting a child to a different school, because they might not be going to your school. If you've only got one EHCP, we're not going to open a school up for one child. Like I say, there's more questions than answers. My head's actually exploding at the moment with things I want to screech. And I have to say, I've watched the Parliament thing and I wanted to kill the MPs, literally, who are asking questions. They're asking the same question over and over, just phrased differently in the words they wanted to use rather than the words that were used previously. And I just wanted to slap them and go, you're not asking the right thing. Will you please get an answer as to what is happening? The government has said it's going to be the same for early years, for sixth forms and for further education. They want them to do the same. They want them to close the doors on Friday for an indefinite period. But they have said that there will be financial support for the staff involved in this. Kind of what really struck me, and it was kind of slipped in, and it was only when I read the document that pinged into my email box probably about 20 minutes ago. They've said that for those vulnerable children who are going to be in school over this period of time, they also expect those schools to open over the Easter holidays. And that really is quite unprecedented. We will all pull together. We are teachers, we work for the greater good, and it's our vocation. I know that we will work our way through that. But suddenly being told, as a child, as any child, never mind one of our more vulnerable ones they're referring to, that you are going to not have your Easter break, but you're going to carry on coming to school during it, is going to be a tough one to try and talk through and explain. They've talked about meeting the needs of those students who have free school meals. And I said in my previous video that was what really concerned me, how we're going to meet the needs of those students. And that has nothing to do with SEN, but we do know a lot of our students with special educational needs are also free school meals pupil premium. And the government has made a commitment to providing the funding to support that and make sure that schools can pay for those meals and get reimbursed for it. And they have also recognised that the £2.50 a day that they give for a free school meal is insufficient if they are going to have to go to a supermarket to buy a voucher because it's a £3 meal deal or whatever. They've said they're going to cease Ofsted. Yeah, if schools are closed, probably can't do an Ofsted, oddly enough. However, they did use the word cease routine Ofsted. So during this period, we can expect that if there is a serious safeguarding issue crops up in one of these schools, which, considering we've only got EHCP students, key workers and our most vulnerable students in there, there's a high possibility there might be something serious, crack off. Ofsted will still have that remit to come and do an unexpected visit. They've said no assessments, no SATs, no performance tables. Okay, I don't disagree with the SATs. I think they're a really good piece of data. I don't necessarily agree with the way that they're done, the way that children are coached towards them, but that's another story altogether. But I don't have a problem with SATs. But scrapping them was absolutely the right thing to do. I have a vested interest in that my second son is in his GCSE year. And they've just announced that they're not going to do GCSEs and they're not going to do A-levels. And I'm finding it hard enough to explain to him what's happening next. I'm actually at a loss for words, if I'm perfectly honest, and I think that's probably the point during Gavin Williamson's speech where I nearly cried. I'd already tried to preempt this with my son, and we talked about having a GCSE certificate where they lowered grade boundaries and where they stamped COVID across the top of it, just so that in the future somebody could recognise, yep, that was in the 20s, mate, yeah, we know, you're one of that year group, brilliant, we'll take that into account. So whatever grades they got could be accommodated for. But for those children who've worked hard for the last couple of years, and it's A-levels as well as GCSEs, to suddenly be told they're not sitting those exams at all, and that they're going to consult with Ofqual about some way of recognising a qualification for them. I'm really quite emotional about it. I don't know what to say. And if I'm like that, how are those children feeling? And how are our SEMH children feeling? Those children who have anxiety and issues possibly around exams. Yes, there might be some relief from some of them, but actually I would imagine for a lot of children there'll be a lot of frustration. They have talked about those children who are taking vocational assessments and how they will make something in place for those as well. They've talked about bringing back BBC TV. We joked about it before, but putting the programmes back on so we can provide some educational content for children whilst they are out of school. They have confirmed that they will pay teachers as normal because it is not their fault that the schools are closed and they are not in. And I'm going to repeat that, they will pay teachers, and the implication was they were going to pay TAs as well, because it's not their fault they are not in. So if your school tries to turn around to you and say, well, we're not paying you because you're not working, you can have that challenge because that's on the recording from the government saying that. They have also said that term time only staff who are asked to work over that holiday period, or volunteer to work over that holiday period, I suppose, will also get paid. So our caretakers, our cleaners, our midday supervisors, those staff who don't necessarily work on same contracts as TAs and teachers, but have a term time only contract, they are going to get paid as well. And the government has said it will fund schools for it. If you're like me, there's a bit of cynicism in there that, yeah, okay, they're going to fund us now, but I'm sure they'll claw it all back when this is all over. But you know what? When is this all going to be over? We don't know that at the moment. And I said to my husband earlier, I kind of feel like I'm living in that little bit in a film where it's the zombie apocalypse coming, and you see the person infected on the plane, and then you snap to 4 weeks later and there's zombies walking around everywhere. I kind of feel that we're in that 4-week period and somebody's zooming in on what actually happened with the government and all the rest of it. I really do feel like we're living in a film at the moment, and I'm going to wake up from a major nightmare at some point. They have said they will fully fund schools for any expenses they incur as a result of this. That wasn't clear whether we were talking about school trips and things like that. That didn't come across, but that should now be able to be claimed on insurance because they are stopping us from travelling out of the country and things like that. So there should be measures in place that schools shouldn't run out of money this year and should be able to make those payments. They have talked about the importance of routine for all children. So I would imagine there's going to be some advice going out there from schools to parents about trying to keep a routine of some sort, and talking about education technology, so EdTech, that is available. And we will put the updated list underneath here in the links of the different things that are available for schools that lots of companies have offered for free, to be able to get that out there. As I said at the beginning, for me, I still have more questions than answers, and I'm hoping that over the next 24 to 48 hours we're going to get some more of those answers. One of the things that came up right towards the very end was to do with schools that had already made the decision to close. So I'm a chair of governors, and my 14 schools in my trust actually closed at 9 p.m. last night. They made that decision based on a variety of factors, including staffing and safety. However, the government has also said that they may ask some of those schools to reopen. And at this point in time, it isn't to do with who is an academy, who belongs to a local authority, who does this, who does that, who does the other. It's about pulling together and everybody working together in what is probably the weirdest situation we will ever have in our lifetimes. It's a very unique, but I wouldn't say exciting, experience we're having. My personal feeling, or my personal opinion, is that we should be pooling together all available teaching staff, so that's not those who've got vulnerabilities or responsibilities that they can't find other solutions for. We should be pooling those staff together. We should be asking the local authorities to identify establishments within their catchment that will open, so we can have hubs, that those staff are asked to go to those hubs and they collate the children of those key workers and those vulnerable children, those EHCPs, etc., into those areas and work with them. So the chances are you may be working with an entirely different team, but at least the children that are there might see somebody from their school that they recognise, even if it's not necessarily the person they would normally work with. On the back of that, I also think there should be another team of teachers who are going across to another establishment somewhere and are making the learning packs to go out to houses that get delivered somehow, or sorting out the online learning programmes, because we don't need 50 science teachers delivering Year 7 science lessons online. We can have 1, 2, perhaps 3 people doing it, but having different people work together to do it, so we're not all having to do it, and we can rotate them round, so those staff that are in the school can come out and they can go and do the online stuff, and those who are on the online stuff can go and work with the children, and some of them can have some time off, and we can all work our way around it. But of course that's me who's put 10 minutes thought into it, which I kind of feel that the government actually hasn't done at the moment. I would love to be proved wrong. Thanks for listening, guys.